We do what we do best. Rank radio, baby. ESPN, CBS, they came out with their top 100 NBA players. Where did Lamelo Ball fall on that list? Plus, is there a player the Hornets could possibly pursue via the trade market before the season starts? That's all today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. If you're making us your first listen, then you start your day off with some Rank Radio, baby. Yes. ESPN, CBS, they came out with their top 100 players. If you want it broken down further, CBS actually broke it down to the point where they rank every position the top 22. I think I saw that for point guards. Lamelo clearly in the top 22, but probably a little bit further back than you would think. This is what we do, Doug. In the offseason, when we are not having any kind of relevant content to discuss, we get our magnifying glass, and we search the rankings. It's pretty easy to find ESPN and CBS rankings, but we get somewhat excited to talk about it. This is why we're here. Are you ready to do so?
I am. It is that time of the year when college and professional football dominate the news cycle, and the NBA chatter lull. The lull of that NBA chatter goes down significantly because all the free agency talk is over, and then out in the void there is just a little beep that is so high frequency that only the true hoop heads can hear it, and that is the beep of the NBA player rankings. And I'm so glad that we get a double dose of it from ESPN and CBS. I can't wait to dig in.
It's a beep to everybody else. It's a loud buzzing in your head. You can't quit it. This is an addiction that you have.
I love
it's
it.
Right next to mock drafts are player rankings and rank radio. And so ESPN, they have Lamelo Ball number 41, Doug.
What?
In the top 100. Now, normally I would call for the fanfare, but I don't think you want to give ESPN the fanfare. Just to give you an idea of who kind of is behind LaMelo and in front, I'll start from 45. So CJ McCollum comes in at 45, okay. Tyrese Maxey at 44, Draymond Green at 43, DeJounte Murray 42, LaMelo at 41, and then we can get to the top 40 where Zion Williamson begins. Scotty Barnes, 39, Fred VanVleet, 38, Klay Thompson, 37, Evan Mobley, 36, and I'll stop at 35 where they have Cade Cunningham. No, I won't. I'll go to 34 where they have Marcus Smart. All right, I'm done. Let's stop right there. Those are the people behind LaMelo and in front. What do you make of LaMelo being number 41 and some of the players you heard that I mentioned?
Well, I think 41 is absurdly low. I mean, we looked at the BetOnline. Our friends at BetOnline did the NBA Top 50. We're currently airing that series, by the way, on Locked On NBA, revealing 10 spots. I'll just go ahead and spoil it. I'm sorry if they haven't released this yet, but LaMelo was 29 on that list, and I was arguing that he probably could be a few spots higher on that list. This list has him down at 41. I think it's low. Honestly, I think it's really low. I think, LaMelo, I guess it all depends really how you view this thing. If you view it completely on last year's performance, then I don't know, maybe he's a fringe all-star. He got in because of injury. So, he's around some other fringe all-stars, but I think these rankings should really take into account more, the future potential of these players. And I think he's got much more potential than some of the players that he's currently surrounded with. And the fact that Cade Cunningham is higher than him is absolute. That's absurd. These rankings fall in love with these. And I get it. Look, LaMelo was Rookie of the Year, but he followed that up. He up. I don't get it.
No, but here's the problem when we try to do the whole Shaq top 50 greatest player of all time, because you just said you want to bake in what their future potential is, and Cade Cunningham was viewed as one of the best prospects we've seen in a long time, and that is doing a lot of the weight for Cade being number 35.
Show me something. He hasn't shown me. I don't think he's shown me anything.
No, and I actually don't think you're crazy wrong in that.
But you got to do both. That's what I'm saying. LaMelo Ball right now is doing both. Cade Cunningham is not doing both. And then on Scotty Barnes, can we wait? I mean, let's wait 2 seconds. Let's wait 2 seasons before we just anoint someone a top 50 player. This is absurd.
I can't even, I mean, maybe if I were to put on some fake persona, I could, but I just genuinely can't get to the point where I'm really angry about rankings. I will say this.
I'm not angry.
LaMelo,
I'm not angry. I'm not angry.
No, I know.
I'm happy. I'm happy. I'll tell you why in a second, but I'm happy about these rankings. But go ahead. I'm not angry.
No. You gotta finish now. Why are you happy, Doug? Why are you happy that LaMelo is 41? Low, significantly low to you.
Well, what happened to Obi-Wan? You strike me down, you make me stronger. You keep underrating LaMelo Ball. You only elevate him 6 spots, ESPN. You only elevate him 6 spots, despite the fact that he did, regardless of whether he was an injury replacement or not, he had incredible all-star numbers. I mean, he's only one of 58 all-stars in the history of the NBA to average more than 20 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds. I mean, he put up incredible numbers last season, and I know they're punishing. I think they're punishing him because he plays for Charlotte, because Charlotte didn't get past the play-in. I get it, but keep underrating LaMelo Ball and just give him more fuel. I want him to have fuel. I think he takes. I think he takes some pride in these rankings. I think he wants to be one of the best players in the NBA. He wants to be viewed that way. I think he views himself that way right now, and he probably views his first 2 seasons as just getting started and not really having the full opportunity to showcase what he can do. And I hope that Steve Clifford and the rest of this organization prioritizes letting LaMelo Ball show what he can do so he can get into the top 20 and the top 10 and the top 5. Let's go.
You have any liquid you want to sip?
I drank all my coffee. We're recording late today. I drank all my coffee.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to get swiggy with it. By the way, I do like the nickname of Obi Ball Kenobi. I don't know if you wanted to roll with that.
I like it.
Because LaMelo is certainly a Jedi.
Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. The ESPN is Vader. James Borrego is Vader. James Borrego was the Emperor. Just keep holding him down.
Wow.
He's just going to get...
No.
I'm sorry.
James Borrego was the Sith Lord? Doug.
Yeah. Holding them
James
back.
James Borrego was Senator Palpatine? Are you serious? Goodness gracious, man. Okay, Doug is fiery. That is high. You need to take a swig of water just to cool yourself down after that. I did not see Borrego being the emperor. Here are the problems I have with LaMelo being
angry.
number 41. You're not. No, you're totally fine. Number 39, I think Scotty Barnes is behind him too. Like, that guy is awesome. I get it. Rookie of the year for sure. Really good defensively. A little of that point forward game. Average 15 points per game, which is a little surprising to me without a 3-point shot. I'm still putting him behind LaMelo, man. Like, LaMelo right now, I think it goes back to what you said. Future and what you've done stock, I think that goes ahead of Scotty. So give me Scotty behind LaMelo. I think Fred VanVleet goes behind LaMelo. As much as I think Fred VanVleet's a good player, had a really good season last year, I'd put LaMelo over Fred. I'd put LaMelo over Cade Cunningham right now, given off some of the similar things you said. Marcus Smart gets dicey because that guy is an amazing backcourt defender. His numbers, his shooting, it's hot and cold, had some pretty big playoff moments in an important playoff situation for the Boston Celtics. This is where I can't get mad, but also I would put LaMelo above Marcus Smart right now. Like, defensively, he's crazy, and that probably matters a ton in this scenario. But for me, I thought 29 was pretty appropriate where LaMelo should go. And like, maybe if you wanted to put him, 33, 34, but some of those players I thought should go behind LaMelo that he was ranked behind in the ESPN rankings. And CBS was even more disrespectful, Doug. I know you had the number for LaMelo. What was it, like 46 CBS put him at?
Yeah, CBS had him at 4. We'll get to CBS in just a second. But
I can't wait for that.
The thing, so yeah, Marcus Smart was incredible on defense and probably not so great on offense. And LaMelo, I think, obviously has the opposite problem. He was incredible on offense, was a terrific passer, terrific playmaker, and other than being able to generate steals, struggled on the defensive end of the floor. And the fact is, and I hope this continues to fuel LaMelo's game. And I think if you're Steve Clifford, you'd be smart to, when you're messaging things to LaMelo Ball, to mention, hey, look at these players in the top, in the top 20. They're either doing one of two things. They're either dominating particular category. They're all, I think, nearly everyone in the top 10 to 15 are good on both ends of the floor. But the ones that are only good on defense dominate some category offensively, or vice versa. The ones that are great on defense and maybe just good on offense still dominate one particular phase of the defensive aspect of the floor. And so, I think I think the goal for LaMelo is to continue dominating what he's doing offensively, probably raise the scoring, raise the rim scoring, especially next season. And then you've got to get the defense to good. You don't have to get the defense to great, but you have to get the defense to good. And I think he can do it. I think Steve Clifford can help.
What about average? Is average?
No, I think it's got to be good. It can't be. I don't know if it can be average, but maybe, I would say the only way it can be average is if you are doing things offensively that are going to be record setting. And that's not out of the realm of possibility for LaMelo Ball. We've already seen his name associated with players that have done that kind of thing offensively. Your Michael Jordans, your Magic Johnsons, and with Luka Doncic in terms of his trajectory and how young he is. Average if you're doing things offensively that we've never seen before.
All right, I want to talk about this. There's a few other players I wanted to discuss, too, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Not only will we discuss that, but also there is the CBS rankings we have not mentioned. Doug set aside his anger for the second segment. We can only have these rankings come up one time per show. CBS is up next. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. You can find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, podcasts, including this year's opening week's games that we've already seen happen. So then we can see week 2, week 3, week 4, so on and so forth. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, even scores, the fastest and the easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Rankings, trade pursuits. We'll do that coming up next. Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Golden State spent almost a minuscule amount of time with 0 of their starters out on the floor. They had at least one out there the entire time.
Yeah, 4 Hall of Famers.
Yeah, they do. And so
you just put them anywhere.
You just have one out there.
Stack them up.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
How fitting it was that you put the Golden State bump in there, because that's exactly where I'm going. The other player listed ahead of LaMelo Ball that I kind of had a problem with, I stopped with Marcus Smart at 34, even though I don't have a huge problem with it. 32, Andrew Wiggins finds his name, Doug.
Wiggs.
Andrew Wiggins was
Maple Jordan.
77th last year, and LaMelo Ball was 47th. So Andrew Wiggins, because of that finals run that he had alongside Golden State, he jumps up all the way to 32, more than a 40-spot jump, where LaMelo only had a 6-spot jump. And this is where the team aspect comes into play, because I think there were people that were really puzzled as to why Andrew Wiggins made the All-Star team this past regular season. Incredible playoff run, rebounding machine in the finals, really got going, defensively was very good. I don't want to take that credit away from him. But to have him be number 32, like, is he the 32nd best player? Or did he make the most of a situation where you're playing with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, have a coach like Steve Kerr? Did he take advantage of that enough to then jump all the way up here and have a nice playoff run? Does that mean he's the 32nd best player in the NBA? I don't think so. Where you compare him to LaMelo, is Andrew Wiggins lifting this team like LaMelo did? My answer is no to that. And that's kind of another problem I have with the ESPN rankings. You also go to DeMar DeRozan. Look, man, 28 points per game. I don't want to do the whole analytical bash for DeMar, because his mid-range was awesome last year. We saw how good the Bulls were. But when defensively they lost Caruso, when they lost, Lonzo Ball, and they lost Alex Caruso, we saw the Bulls start to really tail off a little bit. It didn't go necessarily as well. We had DeMar DeRozan MVP conversation stuff first half of the season. It tailed off. Argue that one if you want to more, but I know last year he was 45th. It's not crazy. LaMelo was only 2 spots ahead of him behind him last year, and LaMelo got better. Yeah, just a couple of other things you can argue as to why LaMelo deserves to be higher on ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, my frustration, any frustration that I have is not reserved for ESPN or CBS. It's reserved for this organization. I think not putting the pieces around LaMelo, and I think they have been, the organization has been very careful to really, have the coronation ceremony of like LaMelo Ball being the face of the franchise. They market him with Miles Bridges and Terry Rozier for all-star and award consideration. They've been very careful not to make it all about LaMelo. But I think they've been too careful in both marketing and player and roster construction. I can see a universe where they had a decent role big playing alongside LaMelo Ball from his rookie season, whether that's a Miles Turner or whoever, not a Mason Plumlee. If they had someone like that playing alongside LaMelo Ball, I think LaMelo Ball is probably in a playoff series, and by virtue of that, in front of a national TV audience. By the way, who writes these things? Who comes up with these rankings? It's not Rod Boone. He's up close and personal with the team. He understands the dynamics. He understands how great LaMelo Ball is. He'd probably have him way higher. It's not Rod Boone. It's these national writers and people who don't have enough time to pay attention to every single team, and so they catch a lot of this stuff on national television. If you're on national TV, big things happen for you. I think in that world, in that scenario, he's 10 spots higher at least.
Except when the Charlotte Hornets play on national television, bad things happen, and then it affects your ranking.
Yeah.
Like, I remember talking with Nada about this. I was excited. I was naive. I wanted the Hornets to play on national TV. And he was like, wait, hold on, Walker. You're forgetting the fact that bad things happen to the Hornets when that takes place. And then it's like, actually the opposite of what it's intended to do. You get some national exposure, get beat by 20 points, and then it ends up just being worse and nobody wants to watch you anymore.
Well, it's a great point, and I think in fairness, we have to say, LaMelo Ball didn't have a great play-in game. It wasn't
the play-in game is the biggest one-game indictment on him. He's also 20 years old at the time, and nobody's going to write the rest of his future because of it.
Exactly. Right. But we have to say that because I preach this all the time, the NBA and your ascension in terms of rankings, both as a team and player, come at these narrative moments. And fair or not, those narrative moments, it's one or two plays, it's one or two games. The stories are written on a few games. It's not really written, until you retire on the course of your career. So these narrative moments, these play-in games, these opportunities to showcase what you're made of, they only come very rarely. And so, LaMelo, I think, will have to take advantage of those moments as his career continues. He's going to get more of them, but, in that play-in game, the opportunity to raise his ranking, he wasn't, he didn't play to that, superstar level.
All right, Doug, I'm going to give you the floor for the rest of the segment because it seemed like you were not angry at the CBS rankings that came in after ESPN. They had LaMelo back a little bit further than the 41 ranking ESPN gave him. So go off on CBS, Doug. This is your platform.
I mean, who is this Brad Botkin guy? I mean, who's Brad Botkin? Who's writing this blurb?
Somebody we probably won't go after as a guest anymore.
No, I guess not. Sorry, BB. Sorry, Brad Botkin. I don't know. 44 is absurd. I think to 44. Say that he's a fringe 50th best player in the NBA. I just think you're not watching him enough if you're thinking that. But I will say what's interesting about the CBS rankings, in contrast to the ESPN rankings, which had LaMelo Ball as the only player in the top 100 NBA players. Well, ESPN hasn't revealed the top 25 players, but I'm just going to go out on a whim and say that Rozier, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, not in the top 25.
Okay. Hey, is it top 25 certified gamers? You might put Terry Rozier up there, Doug.
Well, and if it were top 25 reverse dunkers, then I'd put Mason Plumlee top 3.
So let's make our own top 25 list just to see the Hornets listed, because that's what if it's top 25 most likely players to get in a fight with their coach, James Bouknight's number 1.
I'm right there with you. I think that's great.
Boom.
Top 25 players to miss 20 or more games. I'm putting Gordon Hayward right there.
I don't think Bouknight's number 1. I know he's top 10 though. There's somebody else that's most likely to get in a fight. I apologize, but JB's top 10. We'll still put you on the list.
Okay. So CBS, in contrast to ESPN, did have another player in the top 100 for the Charlotte Hornets, and that player is Gordon Hayward,
Yeah.
number 79. And the blurb written by a familiar name to some Hornets and I don't know if he wrote during the Bobcats era, but MKB, Michael Kasky-Blomain, who wrote for At the High for sure. I don't know if he wrote during the Bobcats years, but he writes the blurb. Do you want to hear the blurb from CBS on Gordon Hayward at number 79, a top, not only just a top 100 player, a top 80 player, according to CBS.
Yes, give me the Gordon blurb, please.
Here we go. Injuries have hampered Hayward during his 2 seasons in Charlotte so far, as he appeared in under 50 games both years. When he's healthy, though, he's still a productive player. He averaged 15.9 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 3.6 assists per game last season, while shooting 45% from the floor and 39% from long range. As long as he can stay out on the floor, he should be able to produce at a similar clip for a Hornets team looking for its first playoff appearance since 2016.
Yeah, it's not a bad blurb. I think he's right. I don't know if he's going to be that type of good this year. I mean, every year, the less guaranteed of a Gordon Hayward performance do you get, right? Because he's aging. We already know that his body's breaking down. We already know that after the initial diagnosis of when he's supposed to come back, it lasts longer, as evidenced by the last 2 years. So everything that we've seen from him on the court is less guaranteed, even if he is healthy, which is something, we keep saying, hey, we need to rely on his health. But even if he's out there on the floor, who knows what we're going to get as he ages into this portion of his career. Still productive last year when on the floor, though, right? Not as aggressive as we needed him to, would disappear sometimes, didn't know how to fit every once in a while. But last year, still productive, just not worth $30 million, which is the big problem.
No, and I think a lot of that had to do with Miles Bridges' ascension. And so somebody had to take a back seat, and Gordon Hayward, willingly or not, took that back seat and then took the bench seat because he got injured. So it would be very interesting to see how he's utilized this year. I'm kind of wondering if he's sort of a sneak fantasy play because, if the Hornets are going to be without one of their big stars from last season, then those minutes and that opportunity offensively, I think, have to go somewhere. And it probably goes to Lamelo Ball primarily. But I think one of the other beneficiaries could be Gordon Hayward if he stays healthy. Also, I think he's exactly the kind of player that Steve Clifford values, someone that can bring you balance on the floor, someone who's a sort of a connector, a facilitator, not bad on defense, not a slouch, and gives you multiple ways to score on offense. I think it's the kind of player that Steve Clifford would lean on. I just hope, look, he's not giving you anything off the court. I mean, he's not a leader, and nobody debates that, okay? So it's got to be on the court. He's got to be on the floor. And so I really hope they don't go through this whole, we want to really manage his minutes this year so we can keep him. Forget that. You're paying him a lot of money. I want to see him out on the floor as much as humanly possible. Let's go.
Yeah, I used to think that until Miles Bridges was no longer going to be a part of this team. Now it's like you don't have a choice, man. You just don't have a choice anymore. Maybe you did, but now this year, given the circumstances, you just really don't. All right, let's talk about another player they could possibly pursue coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Is there a member of a NBA championship contender that the Charlotte Hornets could actually go into business with? I want to talk about that coming up next on the Locked On Hornets pod.
This is Locked On Hornets. Our boys got to go Cobra Kai. We got to go 80s villain defense.
Grow a goatee.
Do the gladiator stab them real quick in the ribs before
Have an
the
Eastern
game?
European accent.
Only on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, Doug, we all know the Hornets haven't done a whole lot this offseason, but there's still some time, not a whole lot, but there's still a little time that maybe they could still try to find somebody via a trade. And Brian Windhorst, I forget what platform he stated it on, but ESPN insider Brian Windhorst discussed that the Suns are actively shopping Jae Crowder, and they are very aggressively trying to figure out a way where they could trade him, enhance their roster, because they know their window might not be as big as everyone thinks, and really it comes down to Chris Paul. We know how old he's getting. He's already an old basketball player. We know the type of grind that his type of game has on a regular season, and so they want some more depth. Maybe they just want somebody better on the wing I know Bojan Bogdanovic has been a player mentioned because the Jazz are having a fire sale. He's an excellent shooter, 39% career three-point shooter, and then last year I think it was like 39%, but hasn't been below that really. I mean, just really a knockdown type of guy on high volume. So, if you did that, maybe you sent a pick Danny Ainge's way, he'd be willing to part ways. My question to you is there any way that it makes sense for the Hornets to try to go after Jae Crowder? And does it make any sense for Phoenix to trade Jae Crowder to the Hornets? What kind of package would be attractive to them?
Well, I think they definitely need shooting. They certainly, I think, other than Booker, Chris Paul's a decent shooter, but I think certainly they could use some additional outside shooting. So I think that would be attractive to them. Somebody that they can bring off the bench that gives them a little bit more punch and firepower. But Crowder's contract right now is $10 million. The problem with the Hornets is that so many of their players that fit that kind of $10 million contract mold are the young players that they've invested in. And I don't think you want to give up any kind of like future star potential in a deal to acquire Jae Crowder unless you were sure that this was the kind of season that would end in the playoffs. And you cannot be sure about that at all. Now, if we're talking about the trade deadline and the Hornets are sitting in the catbird seat and they look like, oh, hey, maybe, a 6 seed is a possibility. Maybe a 5 seed is a possibility. If 9 different things go right for the Hornets and they're just way outpacing the Vegas odds, which have them out not only not in the playoffs, but not in the play-in, but if they're outpacing all of those, then sure, yeah, let's figure out how to bring a guy like Jae Crowder, great stationary shooter, efficient offensively, although it's dipped over the past couple of years. But defensively, he's one of the best defensive players that Phoenix had last season. He would certainly add, again, some of that balance on the floor that Steve Clifford's going to be looking for.
Yeah, and his three-point shooting has kind of gone up and down in his seasons in the NBA, but still 35 that he shot last year. That's more than fine, especially when you get that defensive ability, right? I don't know how to make this work, Doug, to be honest with you. I don't know what would be so attractive to Phoenix that wouldn't be giving up too much for the Hornets. I mean, Kelly Oubre is the one you go to because Kelly's making $12 million, but I just don't see why Phoenix would want to go straight up Jae Crowder for Kelly Oubre if Kelly Oubre actually shot less or right at the same three-point percentage Jae Crowder did, but Kelly's providing you absolutely zero defense. And you have that somewhat leader mentality Jae brings you, the nasty that Crowder brings you, and Kelly doesn't have that. So don't know why they would do that. If you wanted a package, I don't even want to give up a pick, even if he does come off of your books, but so is Kelly, right? Like Kelly's coming off of your books too. You don't have him for much of a long-term deal. You're not getting rid of PJ. You're not getting rid of any of the young guys because you don't do that for a Jae Crowder who isn't going to propel you all the way into the play-in. So I don't see it happening. I think it would be a good fit. I don't want to get it too twisted, right? Like if you could get him for the right price, I would like it a lot. I'm just not giving up enough to probably land him, and especially if Utah is the team you're competing with, they're just going to give away Bogdanovic and they're going to take a pick in return and it'll work out for everybody. That just makes a lot more sense to me.
When I talk about the books, I mean, the Hornets are either heavily leveraged, like super heavy leveraged into a couple of players, like Gordon's making 30, Terry Rozier's making 21, or it's a lot of these young players like Mark Williams is on the rookie scale contract, Kai Jones is on the rookie scale contract, McDaniels is making $2 million, Book Knight's making $4.3 million, PJ Washington at $5.8 million, Cody at $7 million, who they just re-signed, LaMelo at $8.6 million, and then Mason at $9 million. You can't get rid of Mason, as whatever ire you dear listener or viewer may have towards Mason Plumlee.
Or co-host.
I don't know, but he's a center. He is a center. The Hornets would not have a center if they got rid of Mason Plumlee. So you can't do that unless you have some kind of alternate plan at center. So really, yeah, I think it's Kelly Oubre or no one. And yeah, it's all about would Phoenix be interested. I don't really know too much about his time in Phoenix in terms of any acrimony that may have existed. Because look, Kelly, he's Tsunami Poppy, and sometimes when he isn't feeling like he's in the right situation, what does the tsunami do? It makes waves. So I don't know.
As much as I grew frustrated with him in the second half of the season, like he was crazy in the first half. He was hitting everything. The problem is, it's coming down, right? A tsunami does not last forever.
That's what a wave does. The wave goes up.
Yeah, exactly. We just went the same way, exactly. And it came down hard, and we did not see a tsunami for a long time. So I don't know how to make this work. I do like the idea of the Hornets taking another backup center from us like they did Bismack Biyombo. So maybe if you just pair Mason Plumlee and Bismack together, that would be very nice to see play behind DeAndre Ayton, and maybe you could get Jae Crowder that way.
Can I say one more thing on the rankings too? I'm honestly, and everyone knows that I love Terry Rozier. I think he's a certified gamer. I admit, when we talk about the defensive improvements that Lamelo Ball needs to make, people often get into the Minchies and into the YouTube comments and say, well, you don't say that about Terry Rozier. Well, yeah, I have different expectations for Lamelo Ball as a future superstar in this league that I don't have for Terry Rozier, okay? But I admit that the defense is often lacking from Terry Rozier, and if he got a little bit better at defense, it would take some of the pressure off of Lamelo Ball.
Yeah.
I admit all of that. But I am honestly surprised that he didn't even get I thought maybe just like a 100 or a 99. Like if you look at some of these cats that are around that area, like I think there's a decent argument for Terry Rozier. And I'll say this, if the Hornets had made the playoffs last season and Terry Rozier was another player, I mean, that was a certified bomb that he put on that play-in game and 2 straight play-in games that Terry Rozier, as a certified gamer, hasn't showed up in. It's super surprising because time after time during the regular season, Terry Rozier you could count on him. You could bank on him to show up when it mattered most. And in the play-in games, he just hasn't. And had he, then I think he'd be, in that sort of 100 to 90 range as well. So it's all about narrative moments. It's all about playoff experience. And I'm sad, honestly, that I don't think any of these players are going to get that opportunity this season.
We need more of the voters to listen to Eric Collins call Terry Rozier games. And I think if you had that, then Terry Rozier would find himself in the top 100. He might find himself in the top 25. That has not been revealed yet by ESPN. But I would imagine also, Doug, that no Hornets are going to be listed there. All right.
Maybe Eric Collins will be.
Eric Collins should be in the top 25.
Maybe in my top 5 play-by-play for sure.
Speaking of top 25 players in the future, I want to talk about a guy I think the Hornets should go after in the next episode. We don't have enough time today, but I do want to talk about that in the next episode. We'll give you another one this week. I will. That was weird. I hope that I had finished. I did tease
tired.
You.
I have a baby.
It's all right, man. I'm tired too. I don't have a baby. I'm just tired. So maybe the excuse.
I'm tired. You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of there not being any basketball on my television, but that will soon be alleviated because we are mere days away from the NBA. I'm going on a little vacation. Then I come back and there's a little basketball to talk about. We're gonna have game action to talk about. I'm super excited. Tell a friend who has been following the Hornets or following LaMelo Ball. Tell them about this podcast. We're on YouTube. Let them know. If you haven't watched the YouTube channel yet, we got a new graphics package. We're getting ready to cover this season like It's never been covered before. I don't care. 35 wins, 45 wins, 55 wins. I don't care. We're going to have an amazing time this season, so get on board.
Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Yesterday, they had the top 50 players that they were starting to roll down, reveal, maybe 10 at a time. I'm not exactly sure of the format, but they've started talking about the NBA top 50 most valuable players.
That's what happens. By the way, that's what happens when you don't have a ton of players in the top 50 is you're not. See, if we had several players in the top 50, we'd probably be more aware of the format. But because we only have one, we're less aware of the format.
I was told to just do one segment, a minute long for one specific player. That was it. I wasn't told to do anything else. And so that's what I did. I don't know how they're unveiling it. I know what episode they're going to unveil at least LaMelo, and it's not going to be in the first one, first couple. Doug already gave it away. We know that he's 29. We'll talk about that later on. All right. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.